Good evening and welcome to Tiger Talk on to Hull and Back podcast and here on Humber Wave Radio. I'm Eddie Wright.
I'm Joe Collins.
I'm Chris Sorensen.
All right.
And I'm Matt Northgraves.
Hey, and that went really, really well, didn't it?
Went well. 10 seconds before I clicked go. Yeah, it did go really well.
It went really well. Good evening to everybody. Nice to see you all and nice to see you all joining us on to Hull and Back podcast and Tiger Talk tonight. Good to have you along. You can get in contact with us. You can comment on whatever forum you're watching us on, or if you're listening on the radio, you can comment on 01482 772 663. I'm sure, as I put out there on Twitter and on Facebook, that it's going to be a bit of a lively one tonight. I think there's a lot of ill feeling out there at the moment as to what things are going on the pitch at the club. I don't think many fans are very happy, especially those that travelled a long way to Watford last night to watch that game. What do you think, Joe?
Well, it's on and off the pitch where you can, draw the troubles, and people will draw on-pitch issues before they will off-pitch. So I'm going to start with off-pitch first, just to tick that box. It's on Adjun. Everything that's happened this season is on Adjun, and nobody can shout it loud enough for the masses to hear it, and it'll still feel... Let's go back to the summer, right, with the appointment of Tim Walter. That was meant to be...
I'm not going to say his name anymore.
Yeah, well, that's gone out the window for now, hasn't it? Because I'm making a point. Chris is still sticking to it, though. Anyway, sticking to it. When Liam Rosenior left, it was meant to be to get replaced by attractive, attacking, free-flowing, all singing, all dancing football. And a relegation battle is clearly exactly that. Or at least that's in the owner's eyes anyway. Because, now, I'm not going to go into the whole Rosenior debate or whatever, but you can't deny, with him as a figurehead of stability at the football club in the summer, things would look totally different. He might have been sacked by now because we might have had the same on-pitch troubles, whatever. We're not going to get deep into that tonight. But everything this season stems from Adjun. And... Yeah. I fear, like, you look at the money we've spent on strikers, right? I know, Ant, you've made the point on Twitter a lot when we're talking about Joseph and Bairstow. We've paid upwards of £4 million for those two. And have we got value for money in terms of goals so far? No, we haven't. Does it look like we... I hope we do, but I don't think that's the way it's heading just for the moment. Bairstow is, of course, younger, less games in professional football than Joseph. But now with hindsight, you can pick so many holes. And the main thing is up front that I want to focus on, because for so many years since he took over, Adjun has said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get us the best striker the world has ever seen, or words to that effect. What we've got is we've got one striker who we signed on a free outside the transfer window, who's our top scorer and was off the Fenerbahce scrap heap, with all due respect to João Pedro, and I love him. I'm glad we've got him. And then two glorified, more expensive academy products. And you look at the impact that some of them have on games, especially Kyle Joseph against Luton. I know it's hard as a main striker, and he's not a main striker from what we saw, from what he played as at Blackpool. But could you say he's impacted a game more than someone like a Tyrell Sellers-Fleming would? I don't really think you can. And Lee puts it perfectly in chat. Moving onto the pitch, we've simply not been good enough since returning from the international break, and that hits the nail on the head.
Well, I mean, I'm going to come back at you a minute, Joe, and I'm going to ask Paul a question. Joe's just talked about £4 million for strikers. £4 million gets you nothing for a striker, does it, Paul?
Oh, no, I mean, it's not a lot of money, but it's definitely the up front where we're struggling. I mean, we hardly create many chances at all. We always make the wrong pass. We shoot when we should pass. We pass when we should shoot. We don't cross the ball enough. Half the time, we haven't got a striker in the box if we do cross the ball. So it's all up front where the problems lie. Our defensive record, even though last night's goal was an absolute terrible goal to give away, there was nobody really taking any interest. 2 against 2, and nobody went anywhere near the winger, crossed an easy ball in, and they're just watching the centre forward tap it in. So that was a disappointing goal. But as soon as we went 1-0 down, I didn't think we'd get an equaliser, to be quite honest. We didn't never look like scoring. It was such a poor effort. And I don't
It was
even
a
think
game that had one goal in it either way, wasn't it, Paul?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and they got the goal, didn't they? We had some 1 or 2 chances. I mean, Joseph had a header he put straight at the keeper. Didn't he? If it's the other side, it's probably a goal. But in general, we didn't look like scoring. And I still think he's making too many changes. Saturday, he doesn't put Alfie Jones in. He puts the other kid in. Yesterday, he puts Alfie Jones back. What's that all about? I ain't said he should be in or he shouldn't be in, but why are you messing your defence about like that for no reason? I know we got away with it a bit on Saturday because it was the West and Luton. I felt the match. I thought it was a terrible game. Neither team really seemed up for it. I mean, they should have won on probably chances because Josh Winders probably had 3 or 4 chances that normally you would expect him to put at least one away. And then Pando's made a brilliant save late on to keep him out from a draw. So we've got away with it a bit on Saturday, but it was such a poor game. That was after the Luton game, another poor game. And then we've gone to Watford and not played well. And he keeps changing the team, and I don't think he gets any benefit out of changing it, to be quite honest. I don't see where the benefit comes.
I think Ant's on the podcast tonight. Good evening, Ant. Nice to have you on.
Yeah, it's good to be on. It's actually nice to be available for once because I'm usually always too busy, even for the main pods on a weekend. So, yeah, it's nice to be on. Shame that it's not after a win, though.
Shame it is not after a win. I think I was going to ask you, Ant, did the Sheffield Wednesday game on Saturday, that win, did that mask some really poor play that we've had since the international break?
100%. I think when you look at it at face value, it's 3 really, really poor, uninspiring, non-creative displays where I think I don't know if it's the pressure of the amount of games that are being left and the fact that teams around us keep picking up points, and it's maybe made Sellers a bit more tetchy, and he wants to sort of make the team solid and harder to beat rather than trying to score goals, which is why we're a lot more sort of compact and less enthusiastic about pushing players up the pitch to try and score or create chances. But the last 3 games have been really, really poor, and the fact that we managed to get what literally was a smash and grab against Sheffield Wednesday. I think we had 2 shots in the entire second half, and one of those was Hughes' header. And we've managed to come away with a win in that somehow. It made things look a bit better than it was because realistically, we probably should have had 3 games where we haven't scored or even looked like scoring. I think that the problem is when, like Paul said, I think the rotation is an issue. I mean, I can kind of get it because he's trying to manage minutes, and when you've got Saturday games, it can be a bit. You do sometimes need to bring fresh legs in, but I'm always with if you win a game, you shouldn't change it. You can't expect consistency if there's no consistency in the team. Do you know what I mean? It's been one of those seasons. I think Sayers is still learning. I think he's on a bit of a experience curve. Obviously, since coming to the Championship, taking that step up from the league below, and he's maybe trying to manage minutes. And I mean, injuries haven't helped us or him at all. And I think he's just trying to find a team that's got the best balance to it because when you look at us with the players that we're missing, it's really hard, especially in the wide areas, to actually get, a starting 11 that looks effective or looks like it can do the job that Sayers wants to do. But I think he's just being very cautious. I think he just wants us to sort of limp over the line by getting 1 point or nabbing 3 points like we did against Sheffield Wednesday. But when you're as sort of susceptible to conceding sloppy goals as we are at the back, then I think you've got to maybe sometimes just say, look at the game against Watford at half-time and go, actually, these are there to be taken and change it. Whereas we don't. We seem to come out in the second half and play so much worse. So,
we nearly conceded immediately again, didn't we?
Yeah. We did, and that's the thing. We're not coming out. First half, we started badly in the first half. Second half, we started badly in the second half. One thing that I wanted to say, Chris, was that if you're a footballer and you're going out onto the pitch as a professional footballer, the first thing that you've got to do is win your individual battle. How many players in the last 3 games, Chris, have won their individual battles?
Not even one I can recall. That's how hard it is, AD, if I'm honest with you. I mean, last night especially, it didn't seem like anything was being won. Every kind of Watford won it. They were the first to try and get a touch on the ball, even if it wasn't a good one, and the ball kind of left the feet. They still ended up with the ball. I would say the only player that's kind of, I say, consistent at the moment would be Panda in the sticks. He's definitely one of the reasons why we haven't lost. I guess you look at Sheffield, he's definitely the reason why we didn't lose. It was a smash and grab, but it could have easily gone the other way if Pando wasn't in between the sticks. So if you're looking at those type of individual battles, yeah, okay, he can stand up and hold his head high. But the rest of the outfield at the moment, I guess Charlie Hughes had a really good one. I mean, I'm not going to take away that, the goal's not going to shadow it, saying that Charlie Hughes is the saviour and whatever, because it was just a smash and grab. And yes, wow, what a quality header. What a brilliant header. But he is on the pitch at the moment. Yeah, he's the guy kind of winning his battles back. Yeah, I can't really see anybody else. I mean, especially like we say, against Sheff Wednesday as well, having Jones off. I don't understand why he made that change. I truly don't. I mean, if someone actually put in a performance, and it wasn't a bad performance either, surely you just continue
Johnny
it over.
didn't have a lot to do necessarily, did he? But he was solid enough. He kept a clean sheet.
It was solid, exactly. He kept a clean. Thanks, Joe. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I just don't understand why you would bring him out. What is he fitness-wise? I doubt it. The guy's always looking ready to keep going for another 90 minutes. He didn't look tired at the end against Sheffield, so it's really beginning to frustrate me, like with all these chopping changes that we're doing.
I've got Cookie here on WhatsApp. He's put, why wouldn't you change the team when we're playing so poorly? Yes, we beat Wednesday, but it was poor overall. I agree with you. It was poor overall. And I think that, the full season's been full of too many changes in the team, to be quite honest with you. Pando's probably doing so well because he has been really the only player that's been fully consistent in the goal. He's only had a couple of games where he wasn't in there, where we tried something different, which we shouldn't have done. But, Pandor is there every game, and he's, number one. He's got to, his name's the first one on the team sheet every week. And, I saw quite a few comments after the Wednesday game saying that he's player of the season. He's definitely my player of the season. I don't know if anybody can argue with, Pandor being player of the season. I've also seen a lot on Twitter, and, we're maybe going to go over all ground because I'm like that. I just do these things, and unfortunately, you lot have got to put up with me. But yeah, I've also seen on Twitter about Liam Rossini doing well with Strasbourg and might be getting the Southampton job and might be doing this and might be doing that. And I think there's a lot of people going over all ground with Rossini. But here's the thing, right? I'm just going to say this to anybody who's saying about Rossini. Pandor didn't get played last season. He didn't get played under Rossini. This season he's come in, he's player of the season. Do all five of us agree that he's player of the season?
I do.
Yep.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be.
So
I said he was my player of the season before he was dropped. I said vocally on the podcast and everything that we should never be dropping him for Rushworth. Because
I agree.
Yep.
Totally agree.
What message does it say to a player that's playing consistently so well to say the Learn Club are holding us ransom, mate? I've got to drop you. I didn't think we should have done that, but.
No, totally agree with you. So if all us five are saying he's our player of the season this season, why didn't Rossini play him last season? And that is why I will say I'm not too bothered that Rossini lost his job. I am, however, bothered with the replacement that we got. There's a lot of people who are talking about Ruben Sayers and saying, is he right for the job and things like that. I think when you look at Sayers, he's inherited more or less the squad that he's got. He's got a couple of players in and stuff like that. But, we're not in a good position. The team was in a terrible position when he came in. I think he's trying to do things. And as you said earlier, he's still learning on the job. He's still got a bit to learn. He's still a young manager. And
well, since he took over, Adi, if the season started when Ruben Sayers took over against Watford, we'd be 7th in the league. That might have changed from when that table was put out, which I know everyone's seen, but I think it would still be correct that we'd be 7th in the league. I'm not saying when you extrapolate that out across a whole season, we'd be a playoff contender, because I don't think we would be. But under Ruben Sayers, for a full season, we would be solid mid-table.
Yeah.
Nothing less.
The thing to say about that, Joe, is, you know, when you're saying about the situation, the squad that he's inherited, he hasn't inherited a good squad. It was in a mess. We've got the injuries to two of our best players, and then we're trying to sign strikers by paying, as I said earlier on the show, $4 million for two strikers. It gets you nothing. And I agree with what you said, Joe. You'd have probably been better not spending the money on Carl Joseph. I think that's what you were sort of saying, and playing Sellers Fleming instead.
Not necessarily that we shouldn't have spent the money, because we did need a striker, but he's not worth that money. In premise, I thought the signing, okay, right, he's scored a couple of goals in League One. He's had a difficult time at Swansea, but he looks like he's settled at Blackpool if we can recreate that environment for him. But as a striker, your main job is to score goals. And he had his one chance when he could have shot against Luton. Yeah. And that is, that's alarm bell territory.
So I think his chance against Sheffield Wednesday was probably better, to be fair.
Yeah, I agree.
But then
as a good striker, the first thing you should be doing is shooting, isn't it? You don't listen. If Pedro's got the ball and he's got just a 2% chance that he might be able to get a shot off, he has a shot, because that's what any good striker should do. And strikers are greedy, and sometimes you think, oh, why did you strike there? But they've got to do that, because that's the job, is to try and put the ball in the back of the net. And, for me, he tries to pass too often and probably take a little bit of the pressure off himself by passing the ball to somebody else. And, I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if the step-up's too much for him, but it just hasn't worked up to now. And one thing that I want to say is that, I know we haven't seen much of him, but I know there's times that he's maybe not the best quality, but he hasn't even given Bairstow a chance up front.
Yeah.
No, I think Joseph's so much better out on the left than he is through the middle. And my argument would be play Joseph. I think at the minute, because of injuries, our best four is probably Kamara, Pedro, Joseph, and then Gallart in the 10. I think that's our best four up front. And then I think Kamara as the striker to come on for Pedro.
Kamara's one of them that's a little bit like Marmite, isn't he? You either love him or you hate him, and he's got this thing where you look at him sometimes and you think he's so lazy, but then other times he does it. And there's still a lot to be done with Kamara, I think,
the
to
only
make him
issue
into a player.
The alternative is either Nordin Amrabat or Joe Gallart, who just has no impact on the wing. So we can only play Amrabat.
Kamara. Amrabat when he came on, I think I was listening when we was off air at the there's people that have gone mad about Amrabat and going on social media and praising the Watford fans. Well, he got a good reception when he came on off the Watford fans, and I thought when he came on last night, he put some effort in. And one thing you do get out of him is you get effort. I don't think he's probably only got 20 minutes in him, but in them 20 minutes, you'll get more effort in them 20 minutes than you'd get in 90 out of Kamara. Am I right there, Paul?
Yeah, it looks that way. Certainly, he's very up and down, his Kamara, isn't he? I mean, I can see what Ant's saying, that we haven't really got anybody. We're wasting Gelhardt, putting him on the wing, which he tends to be doing every time. I think he wants to get him in, but why not get him in the right position? Because as much as I like Alzate, not much comes off him going forward, does it? It's he holds the ball up all right, just slips it to somebody, maybe gets it back, but he doesn't create a lot. Well, Gelhardt would create. He'd take people on, he'd have a shot. And I think on the wing, he's just wasted. And he seems to want to get him in, so he puts him on the wing, which is a waste of time. You'd be better putting somebody who is a natural winger there and getting him, as Ant said, as a number 10, because I think he would get a bit more chance to have a shot, maybe put people through, maybe get put through himself a little bit.
Alzate has gone off the boil, hasn't he, Chris?
Knowing you. I mean, last night, you've got to think like last night, he did actually take 2 pop shots, but oh my God, they were woeful. I think one of them actually left the stadium, and the other one was somewhere near the corner flag, if I recall. And his form, you can't kind of doubt his form with what he's been told to do, as in sit in the middle of the park, control the ball, and make sure we retain the ball and pass it out to the width. So Alzate doing his job. But then whoever's around him, it's completely different every week. Like we said, the inconsistency with all these changes, you have to have someone next to him to be able to actually get the consistent play out of that one player as well. So, because everyone plays differently, you can't have someone who runs up and down the pitch, then the next minute you have a holding midfielder next to you, or the next minute you've got someone who likes to play wider out on the left or someone wider out on the right. It's no consistency for any of the players because there isn't a consistent lineup for someone who's going to be playing next to each other. Like we said again, the guys on the wide, Kamara, Gelhardt. Who do you pick? I mean, obviously everyone's saying here, Gelhardt's better in the middle. I 100% agree. I'm not going to dispute that. But with the inconsistency of say like Kamara, it's a gamble a lot of the times. I mean, look, Gelhardt and Kamara weren't going to have much luck running up on that right-hand side at all last night. They were just outstrengthed throughout the game. And I don't
that goes back to not winning your individual
battles. I agree. I agree on that one. And is that how can I put it? When you're talking about the individual battles, is that because you just expect them to go one-on-one, toe-to-toe? Or is it because we haven't learned how to play attacking football around their opposition so they can get into these pockets of space? You know, a good easy 1-2. Was there an easy 1-2 to play up into a channel, into kind of a bit of open space for them to run off and actually beat their opposition? Instead, it was being played out to them, out wide, and then told, right, cross it in or take them on one-on-one. We don't, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but we don't have the quality to do that at the moment. If it was someone like, say, Balumi was healthy and fit and no ACL, then yeah, every day of the week, give ball Balumi, he'll take your one-on-one individual battle and he'll probably beat the guy in pass and you'll get a bit of a play on. Liam Miller.
I think some of the sorry to interrupt you, Christian, but I think a part of the problem is that so there's a lot being said about Alzate and his lack of goal contributions. That's not his role. His role is to sit at the base of midfield and make us tick and give everybody else the ball, and then it's their job. If you played further up the pitch, then that's a justifiable, that people weren't saying about Seri's goal contributions because that's a similar role. But with those in tactics, and I think in the wide areas, the problems that we have at the minute is that, and this is what I was saying about earlier, where I think Sayers is maybe being a bit hesitant to commit forwards and to try and create chances. We struggle in the wide areas because the fullbacks don't overlap. I think that they're told to stay back. And then the problem is we've got a centre-half in left-back, and we've got Coyle who's having quite a poor season in right-back. And we haven't got that width or the pace in the wide areas to get in behind fullbacks like teams do against us, like Watford did against us. Because we don't have marauding, bombing fullbacks that are quite happy to go to the byline and whip a ball in. We're constantly relying on the wingers to do everything on their own and then get the ball into the box. But the striker, say Pedro, for example, will have to drop deep into that pocket in the 10 to try and help the winger because there isn't an overload being created by the fullback. So because we're sitting so deep and not committing men forwards, this is part of the problem. We can't. We're not overloading in any of the wide areas, and we're leaving it to the players to just have individual quality to beat the fullback every single time. And I think that's why we're struggling to create chances. It's a tactical thing.
You're listening to Hull and Back Podcasts, Tiger Talk here on Humber Wave Radio. We're all having our big moan tonight because of the 2-3 last games that we've played since the international break, and they've not gone very well. And you can have your moan too. Just comment on whatever forum you're watching us on. And I think Joe's got some comments to come up. I've got some on WhatsApp as well, Joe.
Cool. Simon, let's go right back to the start. He says it's not been good enough all season. The lack of goals will be what takes us down. Coming back to what I was talking about the off-pitch stuff being a shambles. Danny says our striking options at the end of the summer were Burstow and Badia. We were playing Giles left wing. We were that under-prepared. Crooks in the first half, his flick, trying to move it from hitting it with the laces of his right across goal or at the near post to opening it up and shooting with his left with that chop, the ball just got away from him, meant he was always stretching for the ball. And then that was the chance gone. Lee Walker says that he thinks the attendances will drop off with lots of people cancelling the memberships already. Could the poor home form especially, or not believing in Adjun's project anymore? Simon also says we are sleepwalking to League One. Enshep says, I agree with Ant. Our best four attacking are Joseph, Galhart, Pedro and Kamara. That'll be, as you said, and Kamara, Joseph, wingers, Pedro through the middle, Galhart in the 10. Fullbacks at the minute don't go forward, Enshep also says, and even if Coyle overlaps, Kamara isn't busting a gut to get back if he loses it. Because I notice in home games, especially against Luton, Coyle does move further up the pitch to try and help. But he's got nothing. The same was against Sheffield Wednesday. He just didn't have any movement for him until Lincoln came on. And then Lincoln played and was poor last night as well. And Simon says the same, no attackers actually make runs for the midfield to pass to, far too static. And Scott McLaughlin, not of any relation to Sean, it's spelt differently, but talking of left backs, maybe we need to give maybe I can't talk. Let's try that again. Maybe we need to give Giles another chance.
God, it's not that bad.
I think that shit
I won't be able to, will we? He's not here, is he?
I was going to say, come on.
I actually think Macca's better.
Cookie says on
he'll be back, Giles, because Borough won't buy him. He's not been anywhere near the player they wanted him to be or thought he would be. So they're not going to buy him, and we've got to try and shift him from his massive contract in the summer.
Cookie says that basically you always pay more in the January transfer windows for strikers, and he's right there. And he also says that basically Ant's right with the fullbacks, and we don't have a natural left winger other than Kamara, unless Cynic is off the treatment table, and he was in the under-21s, wasn't he? So he is off the treatment table, and I don't like to be cynical, but is Dokan Cynic going to be Hull City's saviour on the left wing in these last few games?
I'm not even answering that. I just not justify an answer from me
Cynic
right now. I'm muting. That's it. I'm going.
Cynic mentioned, let's move on. Gustavo Puerta dropped out with illness last night. Do you think he got the change right in putting Crooks and Alzate in the midfield? Alzate, obviously, yes, because he should have been brought in anyway, but more to the point, would you have gone Palmer over Crooks, Paul, starting with you?
Probably, yeah. Neither of them don't particularly do a lot for me, to be quite honest. But I think, Palmer's got a little bit more about him, I think, than Crooks. I don't know, he just doesn't seem to get into the game a lot of the time, to be quite honest. Palmer does seem to make things happen, to be quite honest, when he's on the he's only really been big player, hasn't he, this season. I know he's had his injuries, but he's come on, half an hour to go, something like that. I don't know. I think we're just lacking as a team, to be quite honest. I do not think it's a team good enough, really, for this division. There's players in it who are good enough, probably, but as a team, it doesn't work. And you don't ever think we're going to score a goal. You always think there's liable to be that mistake at the back, which I think, as I say, I'm not having a go at the defence. They've been pretty good all season in the sense not conceding many, but they always concede one. And once they concede one, we don't look as though we're ever going to score one or even two to get the win. So. I don't know. On the Crooks, I definitely, I think that Palmer's the better choice out of the two. So I think he does try and make things happen. Crooks, to me, I don't know. He just doesn't do it for me. He had a bigger reputation than he's sort of shown, I think, when he came here. They always said he was, he scored a few goals. He did get that one goal, didn't he? But not done a lot since then, to be quite honest. So I don't know. I just think we're lacking as a team, to be quite honest. Generally, I don't think we've got enough players good enough, probably, for this league. And I think it's a shame, really. I think it all goes down to what you said first off, recruitment beginning the season, and Adjun's, lack of getting stuck in and getting some good players. Had Rasidia has stopped, and I ain't bothered about him going. I think at least would have had that stability at the time. And I think with getting a bad manager in, things have just gone worse. And then Sayers has done all right while he's been here, but he's been on catch-up most of the season. And obviously we lost three of our better players, didn't we? The midfielder as well come in. He looks sharp and good, and then he gets injured after a couple of games. So we've been very unlucky with injuries. could have had them to people who weren't playing well. It'd have been better. But these players who are playing well, you don't want them to get injured, do you? But yeah, definitely, I'd have had Palmer instead of Crooks.
On the Matazo front, I was talking to one of my mates last night, and I said about the Puerta. If you had to sign one, would it be Puerta or Zambrano in the summer? And he responded with what I think is the correct answer to this debate: have a fully fit Matazo. But to bring it back through. Harry says in chat, in response to you, Paul, that the team isn't good enough. He says our team is far better than some of the teams around us.
Well, I don't
think you could say that, could you? Because if you said that our team's far better than the teams around us, we wouldn't be there.
And we consistently lose to the teams around us.
Yeah, we do constantly. Yeah. Let's look at it. Logically, we're in 19th place. We're on 44 points. Cardiff are on 42 points. Luton on 40 points. Cookie says that he doesn't think that Luton or Plymouth can catch us. I probably agree with Plymouth. I'm not sure with Luton, to be quite honest with you. It's still a few games to go. 5 is it now? Still 5 games to go. There's still 15 points to be played for. And, we need to start picking up some points. And, we have got a game against Derby County that's going to be difficult because they're around us. The Coventry City game ain't going to be easy because they're still pushing to try and get into the playoffs at the moment. It's not going to be easy in these last 5 games. The last game of the season definitely worries me if we've still got something to play for to go down to Portsmouth. So I don't think anybody can say that we're safe at the moment. I'm still worried as a Hull City fan that we could be in League One next season.
The positive is that we won't be in the bottom 3 before we play Coventry, because Cardiff and Stoke play each other. And, well, if it's a point, Stoke go above us by 1 point. Cardiff cut the gap on us to 1. But if Cardiff win and leapfrog us, or if Stoke win and leapfrog us, there'll still be 1 in between us, regardless of what Derby do. So we won't be in the drop, if you get what I'm getting at. But Coventry having to wait until the Monday and it being Coventry, I don't see us getting anything out of that at all.
It's the extra pressure that comes with it. Difficult. The extra pressure because everybody else plays before us. So if all the teams around us, again, pick up points and it cuts that gap, even if we're not in the bottom 3, if we're level on points or only a point above, we go into a really tough game at home where we are absolutely dreadful. I mean, we won 2 on the spin and it still makes us the worst home team in the league. Like, that's how bad we are at home. That we've got to try and get something against Coventry, who since Lampard's taken over barely lose a game. So it's that mentality issue now. Like, what kind of mental capacity do the players have for this battle? Because you'd think from the last 3 performances that they seem to play like they're already safe. That's the worrying thing, is that they don't really seem like they're fighting for it.
Really good question, and I agree with you. I think that the problem is that it is how much fight the team have got in them and how many of them actually want it. And I think, Jan's mentioned about Alfie Jones on the chat to me, and she said, that Egan, she don't think could have played 2 games on the trot, and that's possibly why he didn't play last night, because he hasn't had much game time for us. And said that Alfie Jones is the only one that seems to be talking to the rest of the backs and trying to organise them and stuff like that when he's on the pitch. And I don't think, Alfie Jones has took a little bit of flack this season. But, we've talked about it lots of times on Tiger Talk, onto Hull and Back podcast and Humber Wave Radio. The defence isn't to blame this season.
I don't know, it's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not.
It's because if you look at it
come
from
back
this way,
to me with a stat that says the defence is to blame this season. Tell me.
No, it's not. It's because it's really easy to say that because we don't get hammered or we're not scoring enough goals, whatever. But we're not scoring enough goals because we don't commit players forward. So ergo, we're going to concede less because we're more compact and more negative. Whereas we actually committed players forward. Say, for example, we play Alzate as a single pivot, which I think he's fully capable of doing, and then put 2 more midfielders, i.e. Gus and Palmer, for example, just behind Gus and Gellart just behind Pedro or whatever you want to do. Just put more players in those creative positions, in those dangerous positions, commit more bodies into the box. We would score more goals. It's a tactical thing at the minute because we don't commit players forwards at all. We cross the ball and there's like one player in there. There's no wonder we're not winning headers. And there's no wonder we don't cross the ball because the winger's probably looking and going, there's only Pedro in there and 3 centre halves. I'm not crossing that. And then turns around and starts again. For me, it's a tactical thing. We're not conceding many because we're more compact and negative. We sit a bit deeper. I think Sayers has just got the mentality of let's not lose for the rest of the season because the goal difference maybe gets us over the line. But we have got a distinct lack of goal scorers. That is the thing. But I think the defence as well. I think both ends. I think we've got the weakest fullbacks in the league. Definitely, that's a real problem. I think in summer, goal scorers and fullbacks need to be the priority. It was a massive mistake not getting a left back. I think because we're just not balanced anymore.
Yeah. We had 8 left backs last year, didn't we?
We did.
I think 6 or 8 left backs last year. It's ridiculous. We haven't got one, left back. McLaughlin has done. I think he's done a reasonable job there. But you can. He's not a left back at all. We know that, and it pushed in there. It's a sad situation when your centre back's having to play left back because you've got rid of one left back to Middlesbrough, the other one sat on the bench, and you had all them last year. I mean, Fairlong, I can't remember all the names, but there was 6 or 8 last year. What we could have, but we had at left back.
Fairlong, Jacob, Vinagre, then Giles. We called Fleming briefly as well.
And Cookie says that our defence is the 8th best in the league. That's doing your job, isn't it?
Defensively, yeah.
But
we're talking, as Anta just stated, tactically, moving up the pitch to get us out of the situation. I don't, honest to God, feel our defence are able to actually help create anything going forward.
And that's probably the way that he's setting us up, Chris, because we've said on here a lot of times, haven't we? It'd be better if he went for 3. He could play McLaughlin, he could play Jones, he could play Hughes as a 3, and then you could play 2 attacking wing backs. And who you use in that position, I don't know but we've got players who could play in that position, and then you may get more going forwards. And I think, ultimately, there's been some questions under what Sayers has done. I think that it's a fair question to say, when you haven't got a proven left back that's doing it for you, why not play 3 centre backs?
And this was the thing with the subs last night when you brought on Amrabat. They brought him on for Coyle and played him right back. And I'm thinking, when he brought on Amrabat, I actually thought, is he going 3 at the back? Is he doing it? I actually thought that. And it was like, no, it's going right back. And I'm like, what? What? I was just like, I couldn't understand that tactical side of it. It was like a fear of changing a system mid-game, which I will give Liam Rosenior credit for back in the day, where he was not afraid to change a system if it wasn't working in the middle of a game. And it happened very often, especially like we're saying with these like second halves when we were coming out. Sometimes we were absolutely abysmal the first half, and in the second half we were a completely different team under Liam Rosenior. Whilst at the moment we seem to be kind of weighing up the first half, and then the second half happens, and we're not even on. We hadn't even started yet. The whistle might have been blown for 5 minutes, and we're still kind of wondering what the hell's going on. So it's a bit of a hit and miss at the moment with respect to kind of the subs, how we're playing.
We've said this regularly, though, haven't we, Christian? That the subs, I think, is Sellers' weakest point at the minute for me. I think the subs consistently wrong.
Yeah, he's not got a lot to choose from. But I agree with you. Not to see Harry Vaughan enter the pitch, not to see Sellers Fleming have a game, not to play Bairstow in the centre. I think them 3 things for me will irritate me for the rest of the season. What I wanted you to do, Joe, and I want you to do this really quickly. I want you to get on the screen in front of everybody our last 5 games. So last 5 games, I want on the screen in front of us. And in the chat, I want you to tell us what points we're getting from each game of these last 5 games. So I'll read about to you while Joe's getting them up. We've got Coventry.
I'm there. I am there.
Go on then, Joe.
But you need to read them out for radio anyway.
So we've got Coventry, we've got Swansea, we've got Preston, we've got Derby, and we've got Portsmouth. Home games against Coventry, Preston, and Derby. Away games against Swansea and Portsmouth. How many points? Let's start with you, Paul. How many points are we getting out of them last 5 games?
I'm going to say 5.
5. Ant?
6.
Depends
Chris?
if you want the realist me or the optimistic me. No, I'm going to go with 5. Yeah, I'm seeing 5.
Joe?
8.
Blooming heck, Joe. See, I'm on the radio. 8, Joe. Yeah, so tell us in the chat how many you think we're going to get out of these last 5 games. I thought it was a good question to ask. With 5 games being left, I think we probably need 6 points from the last 5 games to keep us in the championship next season. I'll quickly go through you all again. Paul, how many points do we need to stay up?
I probably need 50, to be fair. They say 50 to mark, which is 6, isn't it? I think we
Chris?
might just fall 1 short.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I actually think we're going to need more than the 6 points. I actually do. I think with how our form is compared to everyone below us, we're the worst form at the moment in the last 5 games, that is. So, yeah, more.
No, yeah, I think 2 wins. I think 2 wins does it. I think you could probably even get away with 5. I mean, the thing is we're all thinking about the points total as a thing, but all the teams below us have to also pick up more points than us because of our goal difference. So I think that we can probably afford 5 or 6, I would say.
Joe?
I think we're looking at, what Ant said, 5 or 6 points. A lot of teams have still got to play each other as well, which is the very interesting dynamic in all of this. How many of those games are between teams at the bottom? Like you've got Swansea versus Plymouth tonight. You move on to the weekend's games. You've got Luton against a free-falling Blackburn, but they're not threatened by relegation. But you'd expect Luton to win that. Cardiff against Stoke, as I mentioned earlier, that's a big game.
Cookie thinks we'll get 6 points. So Cookie's commented with 6. Have we got any comments in the chat? So how many people have said what points we need and what points we're going to get and things like that?
We do, but I'm just going to first say on Good Friday, it's Derby versus Luton. So that is a massive, massive game.
Huge
on
game.
Good Friday. And going on into chat, Hull City fan says Coventry will get 1 point. Coxie says 1 win, 2 draws. Harry says Coventry 3 points, Swansea no points, Preston 3 points, and then all those final 2 games we will not pick up a point in. Enshep says 6. Tigers analysis says 1 point against Coventry, 1 point against Swansea, 3 against Preston, 1 against Derby, and none against Pompey. Lee Walker says lose against Coventry, beat Preston, draw Derby, Swansea away, and win. Swansea away, we win it, and we draw at Portsmouth away.
Oh, you, Lee, have got high hopes on the last game of the season for us getting a draw.
Lenny says that he can't see us getting anything against Derby, and that's the worry.
That's same for me.
That's my worry, Lenny.
I agree that beating Derby would be the one. And
I think the
one you've got to do.
The last 2 games for me, I don't think we get anything from either. The Derby at home for me is a trademark. We'll play absolutely terrible and lose 2-0. And I just think that Pompey are too strong at home. I think that our best chances at any points, I don't think we get out from Cov. I think we can go to Swansea and win because they're not the best this season, and hopefully they'll be safe by then and on the beach. And I think Preston will be the same, where they're relatively safe, got nothing to play for, and we can somewhat maybe spurn a win at home. I think they're our best 2 opportunities because I just think that Derby's got that typical City crunch game, needs something important, and
that's going to be the game, isn't it? And I think our make or break, we're either in the Championship or we're League One, and that Derby game is going to be the one where it's either we keep Derby in the relegation zone and we stay out, or they're going to leapfrog us and they push us in.
We put the writing on the wall for ourselves.
Exactly, and
I think the thing is, obviously, we had even though we played badly against Luton, none of they didn't play well against us. Oxford didn't play well against us. Are Derby going to come and actually have a right good go? They're going to think we'll try and nick a win. So it could be a bit of a cagey game. I think we could get a draw out of that game, to be quite honest. I think that I don't know if they're going to come and think, well, there's points here for the taking. I think they're going to come a bit like the other teams round us have tried to soak up the pressure and get the 3 points on a break, which Luton got the good goal, but the others didn't, did they? Oxford was 1-0 up against us, weren't we? We come back. So
Luton
I just think
get their goal
chance against
not
Derby.
on the break though. They get their goal through a freak incident. That game's 0-0 without that. Yeah, yes, it's still poor, and I'm not defending the performance, but without that freak moment right after we kick off again, where we're just still asleep, we get a point out of that game because
that's what I say. But the game wasn't a good game, was it? The way none of them was particularly good games. I think they're all a little bit nervous, and the away team thinks if we can pinch a goal, we might get the points here. And I don't know if Derby are going to come gun ho and try and necessarily go for it. I think they might be of the same thought if we can pinch a game.
It's
like we did at Sheffield Wednesday.
It's frustrating. What the frustration thing for me is that, you've played that game against Sheffield Wednesday. You've been, it was such a poor game to watch as a supporter of either team. It don't matter whether you're supporting Sheffield or you're supporting Hull. It was such a poor game to watch. And then you get onto that game, you get onto the end of the game, you get 3 points by a really good header. You go to the fans, you're shouting at the fans are shouting back at you. There's all that really good atmosphere. Why does that not go to the next game and you have them players thinking, really buoyed, really good, we've had a great win in there. Last minute, we didn't look like winning, but we managed to get it. Why does that not go to the next game? Why are we so poor against Watford last night?
Lack of leaders. Lack of leaders.
You've probably hit the nail on the head.
I think the only player on that pitch that gives any kind of leadership quality is Charlie Hughes, and I'd have him as captain next season. Even at his age, put him as captain next season. He goes out on that pitch and leads everything every time, and you can see him commanding his box. He's visibly really angry every time we concede a goal, and I think he's the kind of player that we need to be in that kind of leadership role. But the biggest problem we have is I'm looking on that pitch in the last few games consistently at home. I'm looking for who's trying to pick other players up, who's trying to make them refocus. If you remember the days of Ian Ashby, I know it's really easy to go back to him because he was amazing as captain, but he was constantly, if a player made a mistake, come on, mate, pick yourself back up, let's go again. We've got nobody doing that. Nobody. As soon as we concede a goal, everyone looks at each other. They're all visibly frustrated with each other. They're all pointing the finger and blaming, and no one's taking accountability for it. And there's no one on the pitch saying, right, come on, we can go again. No one's doing that. And I think that's the biggest problem. We know when we go 1-0 down, it's a problem.
As much as I've been a massive supporter of Louis Coyle on the podcast, on the radio, I like Louis Coyle. I think he's a great guy. I have said for a few weeks now that I think the captain's armband needs to go to somebody else, because I think when you look at, I look at Sheffield Wednesday and the way that they was all around the referee, Bannon, he's always in the referee's ear and stuff like that all the time. I know he got a card and stuff like that, but, ultimately, you get more decisions for me. And I know you shouldn't, but you do get more decisions if you're constantly in the referee's ear. And we haven't got somebody who's strong enough, to have a go at the referee when the decision hasn't gone our way, that should have gone our way, or even you think should have gone our way. Even for little things like a throw-in, they're going mad. And I don't think, we've been good enough at that. And, that could get you an extra 3 or 4 points at the season, which can either see you stay in the division or get into the playoffs, depending on which end you're fighting at, can't it?
Yeah, well, I said earlier on a while ago in one of the podcasts that I think you should be made captain. Coyle's form's not been brilliant this season as well. So I don't think that's helped him, because he's had a lot of backlash on Facebook and other things. He's not playing well and all this. And I think to taking it off him, it would have been ideal. And I think Hughes is the obvious choice, because you can see how on Saturday how sort of pumped up he is for these things. And, he's the one, he's really that type of person you want as captain. I said a few weeks ago he should be made captain. I know people said he's too young, but I think he's that type of player. It's not so much his age. He's that type of player who tries to get everything right and wants other people to get everything right. He makes mistakes like they all do, but he certainly puts his, heart out there. And I think that's what you need as a captain.
I think
Louis
you're right in what you're saying. I think that if we can keep hold of him, then we need to build the team probably around Pandor, around Hughes, and I don't know, where you go from there. I'm not sure because I heard the talk about Palmer earlier on, or the tree. I've not rated either of them. And when, you listen to some of the commentators, when, you've got Casey Palmer coming on, he's a championship player. He's been in the championship so long and things like that. I haven't been impressed. I've not been impressed with either him or the tree, to be honest. Crooks, I've not done it for me either. What's your thoughts, Chris?
No, I agree a bit with respect to Crooksy. Though I like him and he can pull a lot in the tree, as in, he can get himself about. He's not, for me, he's more like of an impact player than anything else, not someone that you could count on throughout, because you can just see kind of the pace that he brings with it. And again, with Palmer, I think we're all hoping for a little bit more, and he started really well. He did actually start, when we started playing him, I think, what was it, like 2 or 3 goals he got to begin with in his first couple of games, and then he went out injured and he hasn't been the same. I do like the way Palmer pushes up, and I don't think that we've actually been able to utilise him enough to actually kind of get a full read on Palmer, if I'm being totally honest there. But the team in general as well, it's difficult. Like we've already said this, guys. We've already repeated it over and over again. It's difficult with the amount of injuries that we have had, and then, again, look, it's a mitigating factor. We've had injuries. It's kind of put us back a bit, and the team's kind of been scrapping together. We weren't right in the in the summer transfer market. We were too late to the ball. I mean, even if I start looking at, if I was saying, look, let's look at the team that we potentially could have next season, the midfield for me is actually brilliant. If the injuries are all out the way, you've got Matazo, you've actually got Bloomy, and Miller will be back. You could, if we do complete the signings and however the doping situation goes on with Zambrano, you could have Zambrano, Matazo, Alzate as your 3 in the midfield. If we sign Gustavo, you'd have Gustavo as well. And that is a really good midfield. And so I'm not really concerned in that department. I am still concerned in the striker department. Though I love Zhao. Zhao's not the guy who's going to get us these 10 to 20 goals in a season. I'm sorry. I love what he does, but alone, he's not going to do that, and we do need someone with him. And the back line, again, look, we've got Hughes. Yep. Jones, fine. Look, he has good games. He had bad games. He's a standard player. We've got Panda, but fullbacks for me, especially with the former Louis Coyle, I think Louis Coyle's kind of gone over that. He's had his peak a few years ago, and he's now on that kind of downward spiral. So we do need that new captaincy to kind of be passed on, as we've said, new wing backs. So, look, the team's looking fine, but not at the same time. So when we start looking at, say, Crooks and Palmer, for me, the kind of sub-impact players, I wouldn't depend on them. Because I've just rinsed the team out, but neither of them were in my starting lineup. And that's where my mentality is with them. If I'm picking around them.
Couple of scores that are on at the moment. Oxford are losing 1-0 against QPR, and Swansea are beating Plymouth 1-0 at the moment as it stands. Anyway, listen, we ain't got time to go through the rebuild of the squad, but there is going to be a big rebuild of the squad again in the summer, which is a disappointing thing because of we just seem to be doing it every year at the moment, and it's something that we don't need. And I think if we're in the Championship or if we go down to League One, there's going to be a massive rebuild on again, which is a bit of a worry.
There's going to be churn for sure, and just the level of which depends. What division we're in. I think if we stay in this league, we can cut the deadwood and stuff like that. But then if we go down to League One, the overhaul comes because we have to sell to buy. And that'll involve Hughes going, Panda going, Alzate going. And that's just how it is. But we'll discuss the intricacies of that when we know what division we're going to be in.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to state, and we don't want to get too deep into that. We probably do need 2 fullbacks, a centre back, a winger, and at least 2 new strikers. That is a fair comment there from Cookie. I think that we're going to need that again. But yeah, we won't get into it tonight. I'm disappointed. I want Hull City to, not a word I know, undisappoint me on their Monday night against Coventry City because, for me, they've got to put in some big performance. They've got a bit of a longer time before the other teams play. So, it's nearly a week's break for them. It should be enough time for Sayers to get the team in shape for Monday night, Paul, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the type of game where, to be fair, even though I don't think they will get a win, it's the type of game what City will turn up and get a win in it. A match that you don't expect them to do very well, to do well. I don't know why it seems to happen. I mean, we've done well at Sheffield, haven't we? And, these type of places. It's just funny, really, with City. But this season's, I think, a particular worry at the moment because we don't look like a team at the moment that's going to get anywhere. So
less than a minute remaining, Joe. We need a big game on Monday night.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with what Paul said, that I don't think we'll get anything, but it is a typical City sort of game where we go and beat a team we've got no right to beat. Only difference for most of this season is this time we'd have to do it at home, whereas usually we do it on the road.
Hey, and good to have had you on tonight, and good that you've managed to make it and get out of your busy schedule to come on tonight. Do you see it as we could do something on Monday night?
I'd love to say yes, but Coventry at their place rips us to shreds, and we're not very good at home. So it has all the hallmarks of quite a disappointing night. But like you say, we are Hull City, and we like to do things the hard way. So it wouldn't surprise me if we managed to do another smash and grab and get away with a 1-0 win or something, just totally against the run of play.
On that, I've got to say, I've been Eddie Wright.
I've been Joe Collins.
I've been Chris Sorensen.
I've been Paul Wright.
And I've been Andy Northgraves.
And you've been listening to Hull and Back Podcast Tiger Talk here on Humber Wave Radio and on to Hull and Back Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Bye.